Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very good day and welcome to this edition of Health Matters. I'm Gouwah Solomon. With me today, Dr. Shoyab Wadee, and appreciate his time once again affording us his medical expertise on health matters today as we look at first aid and safety during this holiday season, Doc.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the viewers. Yes, a very important topic as we're heading out into the silly season, the festive season, the season where, lots of things happen. We thought it's important to just take stock of what requirements you may need to put into place or what to be aware of. As usual, I just want to start with a little message from an Islamic side, from the Islamic perspective. We know that, there can be great benefit in travel, in going around and learning about the world, the creation of Allah Ta'ala. But obviously one needs to have the correct intention. One needs to prepare oneself, make sure that they don't miss any of the requirements like making salah, performing their obligatory requirements. At the same time, there is a sunnah about and a tradition of preparing one's will, making sure one's affairs are in order, so if anything does happen during a long journey or travel, that one's family is looked after, and obviously returning safely, taking precautions to return safely. Those are all part of our tradition.
All that checks are ticked, but we don't quite realize when we are in an emergency situation, have we at least catered for that?
Absolutely, and I think that's why we have our guests here today.
Absolutely. So ER24 guys are in studio with us. We have a communication officer, head of the media out at ER24, as well as branch manager in Johannesburg West. Assalamu alaikum to you, Shamiel, Arreff.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And then we have Russel, Meiring, as I mentioned, communication officer.
Thank you very much for having us on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, very busy time of the year today. At least this time, December, festive season, January. But quickly, before we get into the crazy and the nitty-gritties of the festive season, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do at ER24.
Well, I've been at ER24 for 5.5 years now as the communications officer, managing all the social media, interviews, radio, TV. Before that, as an operational intermediate life support paramedic for a number of years. I think this is going on for my 12th year. Not as much as some others, but we're going along.
And you're still going strong.
Loving it.
Absolutely.
It's a tough job, but loving it.
Yes, it takes a certain personality and individual to be in this industry, doesn't it?
I think a very special kind of person. I look at some of our staff, and Shamiel included, where, they strive to better themselves. They strive to push every day just to get to that patient faster, to help that patient a little more than what is actually possible, and so it takes a really special bunch of guys to do what they do.
Absolutely. Shall we tell us a bit about yourself?
I'm a advanced life support paramedic, currently managing the Johannesburg West branch of ER24. Also currently completing my master's in emergency medicine as part of furthering education. I'm married and I've got 2 kids. And this is my passion. I've actually changed my career from chemical engineering into this.
Wonderful. I think, Doc, like teachers, people that's passionate about academics, dealing with children, teaching, this is also something very specific.
I think certainly being a paramedic, it's a fantastic career. It's a mix of MacGyver, adventure, medical knowledge, critical skills, but also it can be a fairly thankless job. People, are not aware of the amount of dedication, the amount of hours, the serious commitment that it requires. This is a job which is done at hours when everybody else is sleeping, people are relaxing, and they're busy with their TV. And by nature, it's a job which deals with emergencies. Am I right? So it really is a calling. I wonder if the remuneration can ever make up for what
balance
people
anyway.
who do this type of job. And in fact, just my question to you guys, we're coming to a time of the year where there's a lot of people finishing matric, embarking on careers, and we know there's a shortage of paramedics for a variety of reasons in South Africa, including what I just mentioned, that it is a difficult thing to do. It requires a commitment. What would your advice be to some young students who want to embark on this type of career?
My advice to them would be to rather go to the universities. The short courses have stopped.
Right.
And we all advocate.
You have to do a degree course, though.
It's a degree course, 4-year degree course. It's an honors degree where they learn very specialized medical rescue techniques and high-angle rescue, motor vehicle rescue, as well as medical emergency treatments on patients.
And it's a highly specialized skill. I must tell you, if a doctor stops on the side of the road and a paramedic stops at the side of the road for a patient, you kick the doctor off. He'll have no idea what to do, truly, to be honest. But a paramedic has got a set of dedicated skills which is trained to deal with that particular situation.
And it's a very highly trained set of skills.
Absolutely,
I mean, it's 4 years full time, from basics of business management all the way through to pharmacology, rescues, confined space diving. So the guys really cover a vast array of specialized skills.
And there's that excitement there as well. You get to wear a suit.
To get into this jumpsuit. Yeah, so guys, let's start with some of the emergency situations that people do find themselves, in this time of year. Car variety, whether you're on the road, camping, whether you're out holiday at the sea, fishermen, in fact. You guys work with an array of support team. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. Not only do the branches work with various organizations, ER24 as a whole work with several organizations during this festive season, as this is a very busy time for us, whether it be campaigns of driving safely to water safety, home safety, things like that, car safety for another, which is generally one that people always forget about.
I think maybe let's unpack some of what goes on at this time of the year. It's a combination of a suspension of common sense by many people, given the spirit around, and spirit can be taken literally or metaphorically in this instance, around what happens at this time of the year. It's a holiday period. People feel freer. They're sometimes not as careful about what they would do. They're a bit more adventurous. At the same time, combined with the fact that everybody's doing it at the same time. So the roads are tremendously busy. There's a whole lot more people traveling long distances.
And they're eager to get to their journey.
They're eager to get there. So they may be speeding. They may not be sleeping, as much as they would normally. So I think there's a lot of things which come together. And you mentioned then this can, this can translate into emergencies in like almost every sphere, from emergencies at home, on the road, at the holiday place, even sometimes at the workplace. Because sometimes people at work are doing things with less staff,
and they feel overburdened.
And a variety of emergencies can arise, ranging from the person who's not trained doing a job and falling off a ladder, to somebody committing suicide because they're so stressed out because they've been left alone. I'm sure that's what you see.
We see a lot of that.
Okay.
And just people tend to lose common sense. Right. And that's when an accident occurs. And when those accidents occurs, that's when they find themselves in predicaments that they actually never anticipated. And we can then get called upon to treat those patients.
Take us through some emergency cases. Let's start at home. Kids are busy, getting up to all crazy mischief, even climbing trees, and can happen over weekends, but even more so, there's more of them to take care of during this holiday season.
And in the holiday seasons, now in summer, we find that they want to braai and everything. So burns are fairly common, drownings are fairly common, electrocutions because kids are left at home and they're trying to plug their PlayStations in and whatever, and they don't realize it might not be connected properly, and then they end up electrocuting themselves.
We're also having some load shedding happening and kids are alone. Or take us through some sort of protocol that we should be having at home when there are any emergency situations.
Well, one of the first things to do, and as Shamiel said, there can be a variety of emergencies at home, but one of the first things that any child needs to do is call for help. That is one of the first steps. Even if they don't know how to treat a burn or an electrical burn or a cut, one of the first steps is to get definitive care to the home. Scream for help, scream for a neighbor, teach him. And our number is very, very simple, 084 124, and teach him. And our trained staff will be able to tell them, and they've dealt with kids from as young as 5, 6 years old. And they'll say, what is happening? Where's mommy? Where's daddy? Where are you? Where can we send an ambulance?
I mean, really, everybody in the home should know what the procedure is if there's an emergency.
Absolutely.
What do you do? Pick up the phone and call, or find an adult, whatever it is.
Precisely. I mean, with my kids, from a young age, we taught them like, this is mommy's number, this is daddy's number, this is the number you dial for an ambulance, and strangely enough, this is the number you dial for the police services. And we find it's common practice that in an emergency people forget, and then they'll dial common numbers 1011, and that causes a delay in getting the right emergency service through to you, because the police is not going to send an ambulance. They're going to reroute the call through to an emergency ambulance.
So South Africa doesn't have a 911 service where there's a single emergency number?
No, we don't.
Unfortunately,
I thought it was 1011,
No,
but they redirect you.
That is for your authorities, your South African Police Service.
Okay.
So with the number of services in South Africa, ranging from one ambulance to ER24, for example, with a few 100,000 staff, ambulances, specialized vehicles, there's quite a few numbers. So this is why we're teaching people, know our number, know what to do in an emergency. And I mean, this is on a side of it as well. I believe every single person, whether you have a child or not, should have at least level 1 first aid.
Sure.
Level 1, take us to that.
It's quite an in-depth course. Shamiel can definitely...
We've got 2 minutes to break, so I don't know if you want to start it rolling.
Well, in level 1 first aid, what you do is they teach you basics on how to stop bleeding, how to do CPR effectively on an adult and on a child, and basic first aid treatment.
Okay.
But the important thing is in level 1 is they start teaching you the preservation of life. And then you move on to level 2 where you get a little bit more in-depth, such as fractures and splinting, and in level 3 where they would include emergency childbirth and a little bit more knowledge.
What sort of age could one start that level training?
From school
Is it?
Absolutely. We've
level 1.
Our branch managers always are sending vehicles to schools to do little demonstrations. I myself have taught young kids with the basics of how to apply direct pressure to bleeding, how to put on a bandage. So primary school, high school can start teaching this. And your first aid level 1 is 2 days full-time, obviously, from January around from 8 till 4. And anyone can do it.
It's not rocket science, but the problem is in a panic situation, people panic and don't calm down and take the rational steps.
Correct.
So if they have this training behind them, often it's don't panic. That's probably the first thing that they teach you.
And always
look for hazards.
Practice.
Yes, role play.
Kids from as young as 5 can learn how to do effective CPR.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I was going to jump in to say, show us, but at the end of the day, there are sort of organizations, there's people like you that come out to schools, that show people, show children, show the little ones, so simple things can be learned at home, and parents just need to role play for them to sort of understand it and not get frightened when it does actually happen. We need to go for a break. We're talking about emergency situations, how to be safe during this holiday season. Please do stay with us in Health Matters. Back in a moment. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. This is Health Matters. I'm Hawa Solomon. With me co-hosting is Dr. Shoyab Wadee, and we're taking you through some safety tips during this holiday season, being safe, and also some first aid information. We have the first and callers, ER24 084124 is that number you must remember besides your parents' number, Doc.
So, I mean, one of the things that we alluded to earlier, and we just thought we'd take a step back, is obviously prevention is better if you can prevent things happening during the holidays. Everybody, is relaxed, but and sometimes that means that we let our guard down and we do things which we shouldn't do or we wouldn't otherwise do. Let's go through some of the things which you guys see.
Absolutely, and you mentioned it. If interesting enough, in the pediatric child chain of survival, the first link is prevention.
Yes.
And take swimming pools example. It is law that every swimming pool in South Africa has to have at least a net and a fence to prevent child drownings. It's been proven to prevent child drownings, but yet we find swimming pools without. Plug sockets should be covered, but they're not. They're exposed, and that's how kids get electrocuted. Drinking and driving should not happen.
I mean, drinking, we could go through the links with emergencies, multiple links from...
And it's been proven. Alcohol and driving just don't mix.
Absolutely.
Child safety in a car. I cannot tell you how many times I have driven past, even in fact stopped and addressed parents to say, why are you traveling with your child on your lap in the front seat, first of all, and then your child is not restrained?
Yes.
My kids put their seatbelts on.
I mean, this is a pretty common thing in holidays. So we're going to squeeze one more person into the car, which means we need to take the car seat out. And that means one of the kids is going to sit on somebody's lap. And that is, I mean, terribly unsafe. It shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen because that child becomes an instant projectile.
Absolutely.
And everything in the back of the car seat is going to fling forward when you come to a sudden stop, and it's going to cause injury. And unfortunately, we as paramedics get to then relay the bad news.
There is times where you are safe, you are traveling safe, you are doing the necessary, but then there is an unfortunate drunkard that is on that road, not following traffic rules or whatever the case is. So how are we not just encouraging others, but also trying to be extra safe, although you are safe on the road as well?
As a driver, I think it's important you need to be alert and defensive. And if drivers can learn to read the road, I think a lot of accidents will be prevented. And when you're hearing an emergency vehicle coming through, don't try and race the emergency vehicle.
Yeah.
Don't try and keep up with the There's no glory in that. We've got a destination to get to save a person's life.
You're not racing somebody. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So new to me, coming to Joburg is where people do not follow any sort of traffic rules. I am shocked at the way Johannesburg people drive. I'm told differently when Joburg people come to Cape Town. But yes, I am now extra cautious on Joburg roads, not just for the festive season, but people do not stop at red robots. They do not stop at stop streets.
I think that type of aggressive thing is a problem, as Shamiel was saying. People are not defensive.
Well, this is the thing. It's not guidelines. They are rules. You know, the speed limit is there for a reason. Because you can stop if traveling at 60 kilometers per hour. You can stop in a relatively short distance. You're going 80 kilometers, 100 kilometers. You are not going to stop effectively. And drinking and driving. So
Absolutely.
even if you are not drinking and driving, the other driver, there's that saying. It's always someone else.
Yes.
Thinking, I can quickly catch this robot. And as we've seen, there are certain vehicles that carry a large amount of people, to and from their job, that may skip a robot thinking, I need to get to that passenger on the side of the road. And you can have 15, 16 people
So you need
killed.
to just be a little bit more calmer on the road and just sit back and...
But also do the things as Shamiel mentioned. You don't want to not have your own safety belt on, have your child sitting on your lap when you can't control all the variables around what's happening on that road.
When you're going through an intersection, 2 seconds longer just to observe and watch is not going to cost you anything.
Saves your life,
We must remember, especially with the drivers from Johannesburg going through to the coastal areas and they're coming through to the smaller towns, there's also trucks carrying heavy loads.
Yes,
And those brakes fail. And that truck needs a longer distance to stop. So if we are cautious and we are cognizant of that, we might just prevent an injury or an accident from also.
So taking the long road, Doc, I think first aid is always not something that you think of. You're packing in your cool drinks, your snacks, the stuff that you need for camping or whatever's needed for the road, but not first aid. A lot of vehicles actually do have a little first aid kit, but what must be in there?
By law, we should have a first aid kit. So to start off with, minimum, you should have a variety of bandages. Crepe bandages are good for supporting splints and compression, and they allow also for expansion and swelling of an injured extremity. Then you want little conforming first aid bandages. They're called FADs. You get 3 size 3s, 4s, and 5s.
Okay.
They've got built-in gauze, and they're good for stopping bleeding with lacerations and cuts and bruises. A variety of plasters. A bottle of water is all you need in a first aid kit to clean a wound. You don't need very fancy or very expensive antiseptic solutions and what have you. Safety pins, tweezers, a little container as a tooth preservation kit because teeth do get knocked out when kids play wild and rough and tumble. You can go to your local pharmacies and you can buy a regulation first aid kit that has everything you need in it.
And it's not overwhelmingly expensive.
Absolutely.
And then you just restock it up as it's useful to keep in your home.
And burn shield is a must.
Okay, let's talk about that, Doc.
Please.
Okay?
So let's talk about burns. Obviously burns, time is of the essence, and tissue can be saved depending on how quickly people should respond.
And effectively it's treated immediately on scene.
Yes, so I mean the first thing about a burn is obviously remove what's causing the burn.
Yes.
And then the second thing is cool it down.
Cool. And immediately, if you've got burn shield in your first aid kit, you put burn shield on there. And if you don't have burn shield, please do not put home remedies. It worsens everything. And what you want
So
to do
no
is
flour and
no
all
flour,
those,
no tea, no
Hundreds of them.
coffee.
Okay.
So tell us what's burn shield.
Burn shield, it's gauze with a little gel that consists of tea tree oil on it, and it helps immediately in cooling the burn. It has a healing effect as well, and it helps dissipate the heat.
Right.
And starts treatment on scene.
On the scene.
And immediately it's put in for the first 12 hours, it's kept on there, and you would see the difference in the wound after that 12 hours. Whereas if you put any other home remedies, it worsens it.
And
if-
Vaseline, is that?
No, please.
No, okay.
Nothing. If you don't have any burn shield, tepid water.
Just
which
water.
is tepid water, lukewarm water. You don't want ice cold or fridge water, because then that causes extreme flings in temperatures, which then worsens
Because
injuries.
it's then on the extreme side again, which
Yes.
makes it worse. All right. So burn shield,
And
you
this is
must
the thing
have.
we always say with that as well. If you don't know, ask.
Okay.
So if you are having a situation at home and you are not sure whether this requires an ambulance or you need some guidance, phone our number. And we
Wow.
say to people, phone our number. If you
Okay.
don't know, ask.
Look and
Rather
ask.
err on the side of caution. Go, guys, I've had a situation at home. My child has fallen or knocked out a tooth, or there's a little bit of a burn. I don't know if I need an ambulance. We can always guide the patient through, or the mother or the father or whoever, and say, okay, listen, it doesn't sound serious. We can send an ambulance, or you can take your taxi
casualty.
to a casualty, your local general practitioner.
Okay.
So this is why we say, rather phone us, ask.
So it's not just 084124 for emergency
get an
ambulance.
ambulance.
Yeah, it's there to help you with
It's an
emergency
emergency
cases.
number.
Okay,
Yeah,
great
that's
stuff,
it.
guys. So burns, anything else we need to know about burns?
CPR. With burns, well, just burn shield and get the patient to hospital. Also, people tend to underestimate hot water burns. They scald and they blister. They
Yes.
don't blister immediately, but they blister the next day, and then they'll break the blisters.
Okay.
So hot water burns, you want to cool it and you want to put burn shield on, and you'd actually see it heals so much more better.
All right. After burns.
So
this
let's
is a-
talk about maybe CPR.
Yeah.
CPR is important. Every family member needs to know how to do effective CPR. The guidelines have changed so often, and there was latest guidelines released now, and they are also advocating what they call layman CPR. So it's just chest compression CPR. So you don't need to do mouth to mouth, but you can do effective chest compressions.
And that will help.
At the
That's
rate
enough.
of 100 a minute, you push hard and fast on the chest, and you start that immediately.
both hands?
With both hands in the
Okay.
middle of the chest, just below the nipple
You can
line.
demonstrate,
They
yeah?
make it so simple. So just below the nipple line, just go down, and you can, if you know the song "Staying Alive," start singing it or humming it in the back of your head,
Okay.
and that helps establish the rhythm and the
rhythm.
rate at which you're going to
Stop
do
and
the
go.
chest compressions.
It's pretty fast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's been
And-
shown that early CPR can save
Save
lives.
a life.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, I think just leading into that, one of the things that people forget is that chronic diseases don't take a holiday.
Yes.
They never
So, if you have a cardiac condition, or you're diabetic, or you have severe hypertension, or you have any of a number of chronic conditions, you can't suspend your medication and your dietary restrictions and so forth and so on. So, some planning goes into that. If you're going overseas, for example, you may not
Absolutely.
have access to your medicines.
Yes.
You may need to make sure you have sufficient supply, your prescription with you to get through customs, sometimes a
And-
letter from the doctor.
Exactly, and also what people need to remember is that at your destination point, you're going to be in unfamiliar territory, an unfamiliar hospital. Those doctors don't know your past medical history.
Yes.
They don't know your medication you're on, so take a copy of your script with you.
Okay,
It's
and
fine.
talking about history and your medical history, if there is a patient that's in need of an emergency care, you guys come out, there's a family friend with them, just for yourself, what information must we know about a relative that or our children, our partners, our husbands, in fact?
Well,
that
I would go even further. There's something called ICE, or in case of emergency.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a variety of ways that you can record ICE information. You can actually keep it on your phone, and it may be accessible on many phones. It's accessible without logging in,
Okay.
or without going through. There's ways to put it onto your
ICE.
phone.
Absolutely. Most
And-
phones have an option where I don't need your passcode to get in. You set the parameters saying this is my ICE contact.
Okay.
And if need be, we need to contact a loved one or something like that. We can go in and see, okay, ICE Shamiel.
And
we
then
can
it will also have a list
Absolutely.
on some of the phones. So, for example, on an iPhone, if you set it up and you say in case of emergency, it will list the context and it will also list the chronic conditions, but you have to
Alright.
program it beforehand.
And then also
So it's
we-
an app that you can get.
No,
Yes.
it's most phones have it as standard, but you need
Okay.
to know
There
how
are
to.
apps.
And as
access it.
paramedics, we are also trained to look onto your arms and extremities for medical alert bracelets.
Yes.
So if you are do have a chronic disease or allergies, severe allergies, you should be contracted to a medic alert notification system. And we're trained, and they've got personal identification numbers. So
Okay.
we'd phone that number, and we'd give them that reference number, and they'd give us a whole list of your histories, as well as your doctor or whoever treating physician is.
Great stuff. ER24 is in studio with us, talking to us about emergency situations, trying to be safe during this holiday season. Please do stay with us as we continue this discussion. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. A very good day to you. This is Health Matters. We are chatting about emergency situations, first aid, being safe during this holiday season with Dr. Shoyab Wadee. We have ER24 with us, taking us through some quick guidelines and also helpful hints during this holiday, being on the road, at home, camping, beaches, wherever you're going, on the sea, for that matter. And as Doc has mentioned, chronic medication does not take a vacation. That rhymed. Okay, so we continue, guys. Some home advice we spoke about just before the break.
Swimming pool safety.
Yeah, so we want to talk about swimming pool safety. We spoke a bit about burns, and also some home remedies. In the break, we were chatting, you know, the first port of call that you go to because they don't really want to go to hospital. So take us through some other common situations at home.
Well, this is the thing. For a lot of the emergencies at home, with prudent planning, you know, you can actually negate a lot of these emergencies happening. So first of all, as Shamiel said earlier, have a first aid kit at home, and quite a comprehensive one as well, with some basic medications that you can give to your family, your friends, and your children. And the second, and people generally forget about this, is a fire extinguisher. Right. We
Okay.
chatted about burns earlier, and it is not really hard to use a fire extinguisher. You can purchase it from most local hardware stores.
Okay.
And this is the thing: as soon as a fire breaks out, if you stay in a flat and you don't have a garden or a garden hose, how are you going to put out that fire?
It's very difficult.
So purchasing a fire extinguisher, they're rather inexpensive.
Okay.
But as we said before during the break, you know, proper planning. So we chatted about pools. If you have a pool, you should have you must have a net over the pool and a fence. Electrical sockets in the home, and you have a child, they must be covered. You know, with the various safety clamps that you get, or child-proof clamps, so that the kids can't get in there.
Okay, so they're taking off the sockets. They're very MacGyver like these youngsters. What happens during an execution or electrocution? Oops, electrocution.
Well, variety of injuries. There's a point of entry and a point of exit with electrocutions. And commonly patients would go into cardiac arrest. So immediately what you want to do is make sure the scene is safe for you and for the patient. So trip the main boards.
Okay.
Because you don't want to go and electrocute yourself.
you don't
as a
touch
rescuer.
somebody who's connected to an electrical
Precisely. And
point.
then remove the patient to a safe environment. And if the patient shows no signs of life, and again I mentioned no signs of life because we're not going to tell you to feel for a pulse, because you're not going to be accurate at that point. So if you've got no signs of life, start CPR immediately and phone emergency services. Phone 084124. But then how you phone and what you tell us is important.
Okay.
So when you phone, you tell us, I am living in house numbers this, on this street, my nearest crossroad is this, and I'm in this area. We had a patient who's electrocuted and I'm doing active CPR. We would then know what resources to dispatch, whether we dispatch an ambulance, whether we dispatch an ambulance and a paramedic as well. And it's important.
The more information you give us, you know, the better equipped we can be to handle that situation. And it's happened several times. You know, people on the side of the road where they pass a car accident, and it's happened to me as well, where they'll say, you know, there's an accident. Okay, great. Where are you? No, well, I live at such and such a place. And we get to the residence and they go, oh no, but the accident was on the highway. Well, we don't want to know where you live. Like, where are you now? Are you at the accident? So always tell us where the accident is and give us as much information as possible. The closest landmark is this restaurant or this corner street.
And usually you shouldn't hang up until the emergency person or the person on the other side of the line tells you, you can hang up now, I know where to come.
Well, this is why we also ask for your contact number. You know, run out of airtime,
Yes.
bad signal, whatever the case may be, so we can contact you back as well. And we have had situations like this where our call takers and our dispatchers are medically qualified as well, and they can talk you through a lot of the emergencies as well. We've actually spoken to several patients where they have come back and said, you know what, I had no signs of life, and the call taker in the ER24 call center actually talked my loved one or family member how to do CPR, and I'm here today. And it's amazing what actually can be done.
I mean, some of the things which are very easy when it comes to an emergency situation, if you're the first person to arrive there and there's been a big accident, and there's been a situation, the first three things that you're going to do is make sure you are safe, that nobody's going to kill you, or you're not going to stop in the middle of the road and you're going to be run over, because if that happens, there's another emergency immediately.
Correct.
And then you obviously want to loudly announce yourself so that people know that you're coming. And then probably one of the most critical issues is to call for help, which may mean, if you're alone, it may mean calling the ambulance before you even start. Because once you engage with CPR or whatnot, you don't have time to call the ambulance. If you have 3 or 4 people around you, you can delegate. You call the ambulance, I'm starting CPR, or whatever.
Absolutely.
So you need to have those 3 things, that you're going to make sure you're safe, that you're going to tell people that you're there and what you're doing. But just now somebody doesn't need your help, they're just lying under the car, watching the stars, and you start doing CPR, you know?
And then when emergency services get to scene, so when we get to scene, step aside, let us do what we are trained to do, but don't disappear, because we might need some very pertinent information from you as a first responder or initial helper on scene.
Especially if the person's condition has changed between the time you
Correct.
arrived and the time the ambulance arrived. So I mean, we had a situation. I was at a squash court playing squash with one of my friends, and a person arrested in the squash court, a couple of courts from us, and somebody ran around the corridor. Is that doctor? Is that doctor? And we rushed through and started CPR, and the person had no pulse, was not breathing. And we gave a precordial thump, and I'm sure he had an arrhythmia, because he sort of came around very quickly after maybe a minute of CPR, but he was awake. But by the time the ambulance came, he was awake and breathing on his own, still a bit confused, but you needed the history of what he had been like.
And what treatment you rendered.
And what the treatment had been given 10 minutes before, for them to know what the likely scenario is when he gets to the hospital.
And this just moves to my earlier point, where we were saying, you know, early CPR can save lives. Anyone can save a life, whether it's a child in primary school, high school, university, you know, retiree.
You don't need to be a doctor. You don't need to be a paramedic.
I mean,
you need to know the basic skills.
It will take paramedics some time to get there. You know, we try to aim for under 10 minutes, no matter where it is. Obviously, there are certain circumstances that won't necessarily happen, but you are on scene and you can render CPR immediately. And if you don't know how to do it, phoning help is still, you know, something which you can do. Anyone can do.
So there's 2 other things. So the Islamic Medical Association, amongst other organizations, or the many other organizations, runs a program of training people with basic CPR. Okay, demonstrating it and training. We're focusing on the communities around masjids and in schools. So if there are mosques or community centers or old age homes or whatever other facilities there are who want to facilitate training, they can contact these IMA officers. They can get the number through the ITV and through the website of the IMA. But another thing which is becoming a common thread and a common piece of equipment which is being spread around the country, and I'm sure Shamiel and Russel will tell us, is what we call AEDs. So maybe you want to just give us a bit of a talk about what AEDs are.
An AED is a medical device that sends an electric current through the heart under specific conditions. But it is so designed that the layman can use it.
It does it automatically.
Very voice prompted. So it will tell you, the minute you open the lid, it will tell you attach pads to your patient's chest, which you then will do. It will tell you analyzing the rhythm on the patient. It will tell you whether it's going to shout the patient or not.
It will tell you start CPR, it will tell you step away, it will tell you what to do.
AED,
Every school should have one.
Right.
And every shopping mall should have one. Airports should have one. And even we'd go so far as saying, if you look at other countries, your police services, your security services, they all have one.
So, I mean, what the IMA has been trying to spearhead is a situation where we can place an AED in masjids around the country.
Oh, sure.
Because one of the things that you can do is, if you live in the locality and you're a few people and somebody can start CPR and somebody can drive to the mosque and get the AED. That may take 2 minutes and may take half an hour for an ambulance to get there. And that AED could be a major help to somebody. So that's the type of situation. If there is an AED in your surroundings, in your immediate area, you should know where it is. And it should be accessible, so you can go and get it.
And there's courses that people can go for. It's CPR for family and friends,
Okay.
which involves how to use an AED.
Yes. But it's really very simple. It tells you what to do.
Well, it does. If you just open up the lid, you
there's
want
even-
something to talk
It's
talk
voice
back to you.
prompted. Yeah, it's voice prompted and
Okay.
there's pictures.
Brilliant.
So-
AED. So let's try and remember that. I'm sure we can Google the nearest AED center or
Well,
where it's
the IMA runs
situated.
a program with together the CPR and trying to encourage masjids to purchase an AED and try and facilitate getting this AED supplied to that masjid. And then obviously there's a contract you sign with the AED supplier that they will insert it and then they will maintain it.
Okay.
Because there's no point it's there and
You
then
have it and
when
you
somebody
don't
needs it,
service
it
it.
hasn't been plugged in for 12 years,
Yeah.
something like that, and it's just a piece
And they
of
usually
an
self-check.
ornament on the wall. So
Okay.
So provided some of them have an hourglass, provided that hourglass is flashing,
Checked, yeah.
some like the Philips monitors, you know that monitor is fine.
Okay.
If it has a cross on it and it beeps, it tells you that there's something wrong with it and you need
you
to now
must
get
get
it
it
serviced.
maintained. Yeah.
Okay, so as just for future protocol, the IMA is there for you as well as the AED, trying to
Yeah.
get more information about that and also short paramedic
Short courses.
first aid courses
Yes.
to find out where, you can get a couple of family members, community members, even at mosques and churches
Yes.
to actually get this going.
But it may be worth, if you've got a big extended family and you're having a family picnic, you could have a 15 to 20 minute slot, pay somebody to come through to your family gathering. They bring the dummies, they bring the equipment. It may cost you a bit for the equipment, maybe for the manual. I think you have to buy a smaller
Yeah, it's probably what,
pamphlet.
like 200 or 300
Yeah,
rand.
and then you can teach the whole family how to do CPR.
And this is the thing as well. I mean, you can get onto our website as well, er24.co.za, and you can contact our training department. And we offer these where it's, your American Heart Association
Yes,
courses, which
yes.
are your friends and family CPR.
A little video, a little bit of
Absolutely, where they
information
teach
how
you the
to do it,
basics
yeah.
of just how to do CPR, or as Shamiel said earlier, where you wish to go a little more in depth to your first aid level 1, 2, and 3. So, everyone should take that step, even if it's a basic CPR course or
Sure.
a basic first aid course. Knowing that information can save a life.
Absolutely. We talk more on emergency situations, how you can help your loved one or a stranger that is in need of that immediate assistance. We'll talk more after this short break. Stay with us. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. A very good day to you. Our last few minutes of our keeping ourselves healthy, no, keeping ourselves safe. This is Health Matters, and emergency situations is what we're talking about with myself, Gouwah Solomon, and Dr. Wadee. We have ER24 with us. 084124 is not an emergency number, not just for an ambulance call, but they can even help you when you are
medical
stuck.
care, medical care,
When you're
yeah.
stuck and I've got a burn, or my child's throwing up, or somebody's choking, or just some, and they don't necessarily need an ambulance to come out, but that's the number to call for emergency help as well. So quickly, some of the time is running really quickly. They say, what do they say when you're having fun? Time flies.
Time flies,
So, but this is pertinent information, and we really appreciate your time coming in and helping us assist our viewers. So when we are looking at pools, beaches, somebody has just fell into the pool, they've not necessarily drowned, pulling them out at the beach as well. Somebody has drifted off somewhere and you were able to bring that person. Take us through that sort of scenario. What should the possible would be first be
when you're in a beach or open water, if somebody's drowning, rather let the rescuers get to that patient.
Okay.
Get the
Just
person out,
always
yeah.
point where the patient is and don't lose sight of him. Because
Okay.
if you're going to try and rescue him and you underestimate your own ability, you then cause two
That is always a
patients.
big problem.
Sure.
Inland pools,
Didn't think of that one.
Inland pools, if you can
Big
get
problem,
the patient out, it's easier to get the patient out and then get the patient away from the edge of the pool.
All right.
And if the patient got no signs of life, start CPR and phone for an ambulance.
Okay.
Motor vehicle accidents, I'm detracting a little bit onto that now because
Yeah.
we're going to see a high volume of motor vehicle accidents. Remember, safety first, always. Safety for
Prevention is
yourself
better
and for
than
the
cure.
patient. Remember, when you're phoning for an emergency service, where you are, certain route markers, they identify locations on the road.
Okay.
And then make sure once it's safe for you, safe for the patient, and you've called for emergency services, wait. Once we arrive there, then let us do what we are trained to do. Don't cluster us or sit and interfere with us as we are doing what we are trying to do. Because remember, we are there to do a job that needs to be done effectively.
And just a big bugbear of mine, I mean, particularly, and I'm sure it will come up and it's a big problem for you guys, is when people, there's obviously a traffic jam sometimes where there's an accident and then they obstruct the emergency lane. They hinder the ability of the first responders or the paramedics
Yes.
to get to the site.
Don't rub a neck.
That's really life and death. You know,
We've
you're
seen
not
it
just-
time and time again, and this is why we always say, you know, the emergency lane is for emergency vehicles. Yes, we know you need to get home, and so does the multitude of other people
Yes.
on the highway as well. I've dealt with it, Shamiel's dealt with it. I know every single one of our staff members has dealt with it, where we're trying to get to an accident, and unfortunately the emergency lane is now congested and we can't get to our patient.
Yeah. Okay. So some important information we need to know when we are at home. Often we spoke about it, touched a little bit on it. Home remedies. What is the recommendations? Like, no flour for burns. We have to think of the long term because this person has to go to hospital as well. So allergies, choking. We've mentioned electrocutions. And also your take on home remedies.
Home remedies.
I'm worried about Gouwah and home remedies.
I'm a mom.
Rather
I have
not.
emergency situations all the time.
Look, home remedies had their place in time. We have to respect them for where they came from.
Okay.
But medical science, emergency medicine has progressed so much that there are better ways of doing things. And rather now, err on the side of caution and rather don't do home remedies.
Okay.
They're not as effective as they used to be.
All right.
There
So
are
call
better
084124.
Absolutely.
So take us through being on the road, watching TV and seeing all these emergency cases on television. I'm sure it's a dramatization of something. That's our first teacher, Doc, of how to do things. But now we have the professionals in studio with us. An accident, something's happened to someone you often see on TV. Don't move this person. Is that correct? Take us through if you are the first responder
So
at an accident.
when a patient is in a motor vehicle accident and it is safe, keep the patient off the side of the road, no problem. If you need to move the patient, example, if the car is on fire or something, you need to move the patient,
Okay.
take the patient out of the car, no problem, life over limb. But otherwise, keep the patient safe, keep the patient still, wait for emergency services to come. You don't want to, like they say, ruck and pluck on the patient.
Yes.
You're just
You have
going
to weigh
worse.
the risk versus the benefit.
Yes.
So if someone has got no signs of life and you want to start CPR, you can't start CPR on someone
Inside a
upright
car.
and sitting on a chair.
Okay.
You need to get them
Low
out.
down,
But obviously you want to do it as carefully as possible and try and protect, the spine or whatever. But then get them down and then start the CPR.
Okay.
As he says, life over limb. There's no point trying to save the patient from a spinal injury when they're not going to survive because you haven't
Absolutely.
done
But again,
CPR.
if you are unsure, phone us.
Yeah.
If you are at an accident and you phone us and you say, listen, there's been an accident, this is what I see. Our paramedics, our call center agents can guide you and say, okay, listen, is it unsafe? Do you need to remove the patient? Okay. Slowly but surely unbuckle the patient, help
This is
get
what you
whoever,
should do.
this is what you should do.
Okay.
But then also, and taking into account, this is South Africa. And we all have a variety of clothing. And if it's at night and you got dark clothing on,
you
and
could
you're in the
be-
middle of a highway,
absolutely.
you're not going to want to take the patient out and leave him on the highway or start doing
Absolutely.
CPR on the side of the road. Because then you exposing yourself and the patient to further risk and injury.
Okay,
So it's a
making
lot of things
yourself
to
visible.
consider.
Yeah, we spoke about that in the break. Making yourself visible. What must a car have and do if they are pulling off?
Well, I think just before we get there, one of the things we underestimate in terms of road accidents at this time of the year is pedestrian accidents. In fact, that's a huge percentage of accidents because there are lots of pedestrians who often they're drunk, They haven't prepared to be running around in the middle of the highway, so they're wearing formal clothes
And they're
sometimes,
poorly visible.
or dark clothing. So you need to make sure your car is in good condition, your lights are working, you're not speeding along the highway, because you could be confronted with a situation at any time. So I think those are the type of things.
So you must also
you
be
need to be
visible.
aware.
And Shamiel touched on this earlier, where every first aid kit does or should have a first aid kit in there at
A
all
jacket,
times.
a jacket.
A
reflective
reflective
jacket.
vest,
Reflective
and they
vest.
are relatively inexpensive.
Okay.
A fire extinguisher, and obviously all the tools that to fix your car. Perhaps a bottle of water if you become stranded or break down. A torch.
Okay.
You know, certain things like that. You get little car survival kits, which can make any emergency a little more comfortable. Should you be sitting on the side of the road and you're broken down, or it's a hot day and you need
Preparation
something
is key, really.
absolutely.
And every car should have a emergency triangle.
Absolutely.
It's by it's law these days.
That they
It's
must
law,
have
you
it in their
to.
car.
It's law.
Okay. So if you are taking the road, what are the sort of advice that you give to people? Not just the first aid kit, something like a battery pack, or emergency services that you're now going to activate this time of year on your phone, on your car. There's so many advanced.
Make sure your phone
Plan
is
your journey.
charged.
Yeah.
The biggest
Know
one.
the emergency numbers in that area that you're going to, and then know your drivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your drivers need to stay hydrated. Also, the type of music you're going to be listening to while driving. Science has proven certain types of music affects
Put you to
your
sleep.
brain patterns and put you to sleep or keeps you more alert.
Okay.
The
So
other thing which
plan
people
all of
often
that.
neglect to do, because so sometimes you're on the road, you're accessible, but for example, if you're in the mountains, if you're in a city which is unfamiliar, if you're overseas, you may be walking the streets alone, you need to let people know where you are. So if you're going for a hike, you don't just drift off in the middle of the night somewhere in the dark and there should be a register, there should be someone who knows we're going for a hike. You would expect me to be back in this time because that's how far I'm going. There have been many cases of people stranded in the mountains and people only realize they're missing when they see an empty tent there, because they haven't been there for the whole night.
So we have 2 minutes to wrap up, guys. Give us your take on helping us get through an emergency situation, anything from the road to the beach to at home, and of course your number. Again.
Well, as we've said, and we've said it over and over again, one of the first things to do is call for help. All right, 084 124, no matter what the emergency, no matter where it is.
Okay.
Right, get highly qualified technicians to that patient immediately. Right, and then from it, Shamiel touched on it earlier. Give them certain information such as where the patient is, all right, what is happening, the address, a cell phone number, things like that. Our call center agents would be able to guide you through on that. Okay. And again, knowing some sort of CPR first aid course, preparing for your journey if you are traveling, and just generally
Stay calm.
Stay calm.
Do lots of
Absolutely.
role playing, hey, with your kids and yourself. I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Teach your kids. Take an hour
Yeah.
for the night and say, guys, if you have young kids, make it into a game.
Yeah.
Daddy is going to teach you how to. If you've got an owie or you've got an anar, you've got a sword. Daddy's going to teach you how to put a bandage.
Okay.
All right. Daddy's going to teach you if something happens, who to call, to run to your neighbors.
Absolutely, and know your neighbours. Often we don't, eh?
Absolutely, that's critical.
They're too far to reach.
Yes.
Doc, your take.
I think we've mentioned most of the things. I think prevention is critical and essential. If you're going on a long journey, from the moment you leave, making sure that your car is in good enough condition to travel, making sure that you are in good enough condition, you've had sufficient sleep, you're well prepared for the journey, you've given yourself enough time to get there. There's no point, booking a massage in Durban at 5 o'clock and leaving home at 2 o'clock.
You're not going to
You're not going to get there. You may die trying to get there, and you're not going to be relaxed when you have that massage. So I think the idea is to be realistic, to be prepared, and to do things as you would on a normal day. I think what people forget is that holidays, your physiology doesn't change just because it's Christmas Day, or because it's Eid Day, or because it's New Year's Eve. Your physiology is the same.
And you still have to
every
take your
other day.
medication. Your
You still have
disease
to
is
eat,
still there.
drink, sleep. Those things are still
Everything.
there.
But thank you so much, guys, for being part of our take on first aid and being safe during this holiday season.
Thank you.
We appreciate it, and also keep up the good work. And thank you for being there for us.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for having us on the show.
So it's a pleasure. All the best and enjoy your festive season. I hope you do get time to enjoy it as well.
Thank you.
That was Russel as well as Shamiel with us today on our emergency insert, and a big thank you to Nadia, our producer for today. We appreciate her time and effort for putting the show together, as well as Dr. Wadee for joining me here as well.
Thank you so much.
Hope you have a good holiday, festive season, and be safe on the roads wherever you are. Assalamu alaikum to yourself, and also from myself, Gouwah Solomon, and from Dr. Wadee.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And a very good evening to you.